Greetings, folks. Dean here with my good cat, Nishka. And I have a special guest today, Francis Fung. Now, Francis has described himself as a Londonite moving to Tokyo. But before we go into the details, it's all about sharing life's journeys, right? And the many stories that we have. So, firstly, Francis, could I invite you to help share a little bit about who are you? What is your background, please?
Of course. Thank you for having me, Dean. So, in a very simple line, it would be I'm a Londoner, born and raised in London. I came in 2009 backpacking to Japan for 2 weeks. And I literally stayed in those 2 weeks, quit my job, have been living in Japan since, and it's been 15 years now.
Wow, that's I think that's a sort of journey a lot of folks would like to do. I think many of us have done the backpacking, but most had
Yeah.
that return ticket, right? Okay. So
And it wasn't planned at all. So just to put it in context, I thought I was going back. As cliched as it sounds, I fell in love with the country. I met someone in those 2 weeks and I stayed. It's been 15 years now. I love your cat, by the way. She's amazing.
just imagine how loudly she's purring in the background. I'm not sure if the
I
microphone picked
bet.
up. Um,
I bet.
there are different tremors coming through the
Good.
lounge. Okay,
Good.
so Francis. Okay, so
Yeah.
backpacking, you fell in love. I
Yeah.
mean, many folks, including myself,
Oh,
when we
yeah.
visit
Yeah.
Japan, there is a little bit of a culture shock, depending upon, I guess, what research we've done. But there's nothing to compare about. I've seen it on TV. I've read about it in the papers or articles, but being there in person, it just has this total impact, whether it be the old tradition or the tech or many things, the way of life. What was it?
Right.
Can you recall when you were there? What impacted you?
I can. And so being born and raised in London and having lived there all my life, up until I came to Japan, I thought I had been around the world and seen places in America and Europe and some parts of Asia, but Japan was just so completely different to the point where it felt like everything was almost upside down. Um, the the feeling of wow and how fresh everything was. Not only did it just captivate me, but even to this day, I'm still finding new stuff. I'm still learning. It was so different that I actually wanted to leave my life in London to make a change just to see what Japan would be like because it was so different.
Mm.
And that's why I'm still here.
I think that's fantastic. And you just decided to immerse yourself into the whole way of life, right? Okay. So
Right.
you've been in Japan for 15 years. I
Correct. Yeah.
imagine you'd need to have some form of gainful employment, right, to be able to
Yes.
afford
Yes.
the what cost of living, etc. So could you
Yeah.
share a little bit about the type of work that you've done?
Right. I think how I'm going to put this is I'd done quite a few jobs in London, like growing up. As a teen and as a young adult, I'd been doing all these different jobs, but that's nothing compared to the amount of roles that I've done in Japan in the last 15 years. I think I must have lived 10 different lives during these years that I've been here. The first and biggest issue I had when I first came here was I had a 90-day tourist visa
Right.
and I just quit my job in London and I had to get a job in Japan. And the only job I could get um, without having any Japanese language is teaching English. So
I
I
would
taught,
have said that straight away. That tends to be
right?
the first job the foreigners pick up, right?
It's not even a cliche because it's so true. It's just the
Mm.
truth. You need a job, you don't speak Japanese, you can teach English. I taught kindergarten, I taught high school, I taught business English at Google. And since then, just being the journey that it is and wanting to try different stuff, I tried my hand at UX research, advertising, um, teaching, university professor, career coach, like everything that I wanted to do, I've tried. And the reason is because in Japan, you can reinvent yourself like that. And there's no right or wrong. And there isn't the thoughts or the taboo or the mindset that comes with being in your own country and knowing what people expect or think you can and can't do. So in Japan, it was a clean slate for me, and I could do what I want.
Wow, fantastic. I imagine, okay, going through different jobs, right? Um, and I can only imagine you would have been meeting a lot of folks along the way to help you on your path, whether they be locals or perhaps other foreigners also working in Japan, right? But surely every day would not have been an easy day, right? So, on one respect, living the dream,
Yeah,
so to speak, but also imagine there would have been some challenges. Um, to be able to set yourself up to be comfortable, right? So would you be able to
right.
describe, any challenges that come to mind?
I think nearly all new experiences, especially in Japan, turned out to be some sort of challenge. I know we're using the phrase living the dream, but more so it was more living a new adventure and new chapters more frequently than if I were living in London.
Mm,
Why I wouldn't say dream just yet is because dream makes it sound like everything's great and it's always fun, but it wasn't. I think what was keeping me more here was the adventure, the challenges, the excitement, the new sights, the tough times and how to figure those out. Because the more challenges you solve and the more things and obstacles and barriers that you can overcome by yourself or by meeting new people, you just feel like you're growing and making progress and you're just generally happier. Um,
yep.
so going back to the original point, why I think I would say how I felt in London was I felt I knew everything. I could speak the language, I had a network, I had a job, I knew people. And that was somewhat limiting in terms of because I also felt I knew everything. There was no need to grow, things are great, things are stable. But in Japan, every new situation, every challenge not only teaches you stuff and helps you grow, but also opens up doors and new opportunities by meeting new people,
Mm,
which naturally means your chapters and adventures also naturally evolve and grow. This door leads into two other doors that you choose and leads into a few other doors, and you never know where it's going to go, which is why it's still so exciting here.
wow, that's fantastic, Francis. And literally, I guess it's out of the comfort zone, stepping
Yeah,
into, in some respects, the upside down or completely,
yeah, yeah,
different culture, language. But
yeah,
sounds like in your case, you've embraced that, and I'm sure there would have been uncomfortable moments.
yeah.
But it sounds like you didn't have a real, oh, what have I done? Maybe I better go back to my home, right?
Mm.
So,
I, I think I always still do. Now, why I don't focus on that so much is because whenever anything challenging comes up, you're literally and simply faced with two choices, which is you either find ways to solve it
mm,
or or you don't. And I don't want to say give up or give in or um, get stopped by a challenge, but you either solve it or you don't.
mm,
And if you don't, it's also okay. You just find another way or you go find another challenge. But if you can solve it, great. Um, I often do still feel, wow, is this right? Is this right? But there's only so much you can really compare or think back to what would it have been like if I'd have stayed in London, if I didn't change that job in Japan, if I still kept teaching, if I
mm,
was still with that person that I'd met. Like there are so many ifs, but the bottom line is what when it comes down to is no matter how much you spend wondering about the ifs, you can't change it because it's in the past. And I don't want to sound like, oh, the past is the past, but it literally is that simple. You never know. It may have been 1,000 times better. It may have been 1,000 times worse, and you'll never know. And what you're doing right now is spending precious time, moments of now, wondering about something that you'll never ever find the answer to
mm,
anyway. You might as well best spend that time solving the challenge that's in front of you or going after something that you want to get.
mm,
And and in Japan, having met new people, you also don't want to waste the fact that you've overcome challenges and met new people. You want to build on it to see what new adventures open. And it may be an age thing, it may be getting older, it may be that it's been 15 years, but the more time passes, the more I want to see, well, what can I do this year? What can I do this month? What can I do this week? And how far can I push myself with a challenge? Um, I think when I was younger, it was more, oh, that challenge seems hard. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But over time and over the years, it's now been, oh, that challenge seems hard. Let's go do it because if not now, then when?
I think that's fantastic, Francis. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that we all need to, throw in our current jobs and move to a totally foreign land. I don't really think that's the point, right? And like you said, it's not really about kind of what if, what could have been, right? Having that kind of that doubt or that sense of what reflection about, possibilities that perhaps we may not be able to control. But perhaps it seems to be more about just try something new. And it doesn't need to be something big. It could be just something new to open up our mindset, meet other
Yeah,
people, learn something new, right? A lot of folks talk about, being continual learners, picking up new
mm,
skill sets. Again, building our networks, that sort of thing. It could be something as simple as that, right? Okay.
absolutely. And we're just using the example of Japan being an
Mm.
upside down, completely different place because that was my journey and I moved here. But even now in Japan in 15 years, I mean, at some point we're going to approach, oh, you've lived in Japan more than you've lived in London, right? Which would make Japan the de facto home. It's
Mm.
not about major adventures and challenges such as uprooting and leaving the country. This is absolutely what you've said, Dean, which is you can look for challenges in your everyday life, in your current work, in your job, in your hobbies, um, in games if you're a gamer, in reading more books if you love reading, in the next piece that's hard to play on the piano. It's always just about, well, what are you going to do this year that made you improve on last year? Or
Mm.
what are you going to do this month to make sure it was better than last month? And
Mm.
it's not that you have to always be going up, but at least have the intention of doing so. Whether it happens or not, it's out of your control, but at least you've got to try and look for challenges and growth.
Mm. And I think, Francis, the one word you've just mentioned now is having the intention. It's about the mindset, it's about the attitude. Whether or not we make mistakes, we all make mistakes, right? So that's not an issue as well. And, it may not be now, but as long as I've got something inside myself that just, what's the word, being hungry, wants to grow a little bit more,
Yeah,
big or small, it's that intention of doing.
yeah,
Okay. Great sharing, Francis. So appreciate the perspective that you've shared. And I always keep thinking there are folks out there in the world, and I'm included as well, where sometimes I also think, what am I doing? Or more importantly, I guess the question is, why am I doing
yeah,
that? So
yes,
perhaps, to kind of move toward, wrapping this short discussion up, what
yeah,
would be a key takeaway? It might be something we've probably just mentioned, but is there anything else
yeah,
that comes to mind when sometimes we may be questioning ourselves, our situation? Is
yeah.
there any particular advice that you would like to share?
There is, and I've shared this with so many students, and I still do, and I love it because it's so relevant, and I even use it to remind myself all the time. Um, just as important as the why, and sometimes it helps you find your why as well, is the Google Maps example that I love to use, and that is it's so easy for everyone to understand. So when you're using Google Apps, you don't open it and just find out the how or the why. The first thing you need to do is type in where you want to go, right? Whether that's a restaurant, the cinema, coffee shop near me, you find out where you want to go. And once you find out where you want to go, then you find out how. You press the kind of directions button and it tells you, oh, you could take a multitude of routes. You can go this way, you can go by bike, you can walk, you can go by train. And that's where you want to go. Knowing that then helps you clarify your why. So I want to go to the coffee shop. Well, why? Well, because I want to get a bite to eat, I want to get a coffee, I want to get a drink. It's the same in life. It's right. If you're stuck on the why, if you don't know what you're doing right now or why you're doing it, it's almost a good chance to press that "Where am I now" button
Mm.
and zoom out a bit, and then ask yourself within this 1 year, within this 1 month, within the next 5 years, where am I actually going in my life, or where would I like to go? You don't have to have the idea of how to get there. You just have to know where you want to go. In a year's time, I want to be in this place, and this place might be having saved up enough money to get a deposit on something, or in a year's time, I want to be speaking basic Japanese, or in a year's time, I want to have done this online course. Find the destination first, and then you can plot out how to get there. And finding and destination ties in with the why. It would then be, oh, you want to learn that course, or you want to get the deposit for a house? Why? And those questions, if you keep asking yourself, will naturally come up. Because I want to better myself, because I want our family to live more comfortably, because I want to live in this country, because I want to see more of the world. Those whys will come out once you have a destination in mind.
Mm. Thank you very much again, and great analogy to have. I guess it's not just about clicking a button, but again, it's that intent or that desire um, to do so, and where do we want to go from there would be the next part of it. Well, Francis, again, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully, there could be opportunity to have future discussions because I know there's a lot more that you do behind the scenes as well. So we'll say goodbye at this stage, and I think everyone's realised Nishka is ready for bed.
So cute.
So
So
for
cute.
myself, thank you, and Francis, thank you for time as well. Okay, goodbye
No,
all.
thank you, Dean.